I also want to look at Labour, though. Take a look at this. Keir Starmer was challenged during a radio show today. Listen.
We will protect. I have protected in the past and worked with those protecting women's spaces. I will do that in the future. They will be protected. I'm particularly concerned about violence against women and girls and the need for biological for spaces for biological women to be safe. There, the same in sport, the same in hospitals. But Jane,
can you say now that you will not allow men, biological men, under any guise, to come into women's safe spaces?
We will, of course, protect...
Can you say that? Because we shouldn't have to be kind to these very few men. You need to think about 51% of the population who are sick of the absolute twaddle that comes out of your mouth when we ask these questions.
Yeah, Jane...
Twaddle, she says. That was Jane from London, and I think that was Radio 5 this morning. This issue about men being in women's spaces. I mean, I feel like it's becoming a bit of an Achilles heel for the Labour Party. What do you think to it?
Well, it was the most remarkable piece of radio. I listened to it this morning. And it almost proved what you might get with a Labour government if, heaven forbid, it happens next week. It's going to be more woke, more of this type of stuff that is an irrelevance to most people in this country. And that woman, obviously very concerned about, what Labour Party policy on reforming GRC and self-identification, all the rest of it might mean for women-only places. Now, Jeff will remember when he was an MP and he used to have MP surgery. Now, this came home to me about 5 or 6 years ago. This was all a bit over there, not being talked about. And it's remarkable that this is being talked about all over the place on a daily basis. But what is, let's be very honest, a fairly minority sport. Now, this woman came to see me, and she was very concerned that her daughter was going to hospital for an intimate examination. And what was presented to her was a nurse that had not gone too far between the transition between male to female. And this nurse was presented by the NHS Trust as the nurse that was going to conduct this intimate examination on her daughter. And this woman, not a Conservative voter by any means, was appalled. And it was then that this came home to me. What on earth is going on here? That we're allowing people to... I mean, that's why I was very opposed to what Scotland was trying to achieve, and thank heavens that the government put a block on that ridiculous bit of legislation for people of 16 to self-identify at the drop of a hat with new certification into a different sex, potentially overnight or three times in a day, if you should so wish. And this really does raise serious issues about... are we really that naive to think that those so minded to commit some pretty atrocious things will not use this as a guise to get where they want to get, to do certain things to females? So, there is no such thing, in my view, as gender recognition overnight into a new guise. To me, it has to be far more deeper than that. And at the moment, I think we've got the balance about right. But I think, that, to me, shows the wokery of what Labour Party will be all about.
Jeff?
What I don't understand about this highly complex, sensitive, difficult issue is why it is a party political issue. The Equality Act of 2010, passed by a Labour government, protects women-only spaces. It's absolutely written into the law. And I want to read something from a government document from 2018.
I've heard this before, so why are we talking about it? It's obviously not
I just want to read this out to you, Craig. It says, trans and non-binary people are members of our society and should be treated with respect. That is a Conservative government document.
Absolutely, we all agree with that.
Published in 2018. And therefore, why are we having this as a party political debate? This is not party politics. This should be about getting the right protection for women and their self-spaces, which is the case since 2010, written into the law, as well as understanding the sensitivity of people who, through no fault of their own, are not clear about their own sex.
But we can talk about Equalities Acts and things like that, and one of the challenges will be that people will push back and say, yes, that women's spaces are protected, the rest of it. The challenge then becomes, if you allow a man to identify as a woman, then that so-called woman is now permitted into said woman's spaces. And this is the issue. Well, many women, like me, by the way, just to be transparent to this, I do not want a man in my female-only changing room or whatever, just because he happens to have a dress on and seems to think he was born in the wrong body, or is perhaps just some perv that gets his kicks and thinks that, and actually now I can leverage this label to get in there.
No, and that's why the Act makes quite clear that those who are providing those kinds of services, changing rooms, toilets and so on, are perfectly within their rights to protect women in those circumstances,
but Jeff,
as they should.
But women meaning biological women.
Well, I'm interested in what you mean by biological, because do you mean by that women at birth, or do you mean people who've gone through a sex change?
Oh, I can't. Right, look, let me just be absolutely clear.
Well, biological is a tricky word in this context.
It's not tricky to me. Anyway, look, let's go back to this issue then. You were saying to me that this is a bit of a minority issue and all the rest of it and so on and so forth. Just remind viewers where we were before the break.
Well, essentially, we were having a discussion about what is meant by biological sex.
Yeah.
Now, if that means sex at birth, then I think there is a problem for those people who are born into the wrong sex and who have an operation.
Right.
Once they've had an operation, it seems to me they are then reassigned into a different sex.
Right.
And I think that is acceptable.
And so you was asking me, because I was saying about safe spaces for females based on biological women. And your question to me was, what is a biological woman? How do I define a biological woman? Well, I've got to say, ladies and gents, sometimes I have to pinch myself because I can't believe in 2024 we need to have a conversation about what is a biological woman, a biological female. So to me, it's crystal clear. A female is an adult human. I mean, come on, it's an adult human female. That is what a woman is. Biologically, it means that we've got all of the female reproductive systems. It means that someone, if everything's working properly, you can get pregnant, your chromosomes, female, and so on and so forth. With all will in the world, yes, you can have surgery, Jeff. So, yes, you can turn your bits inside out and you can attach silicone bags to your chest and all the rest of it. That does not alter your biological reality. With all will in the world, if you suddenly decide that you're not Jeff, you're suddenly Jane, you have whatever tinkering it is with your exterior, you're not suddenly going to be able to get pregnant, are you?
But then lots of women can't get pregnant, sadly. So I don't...
But that's because of a health issue, very sadly for those people. That's
again,
because something is not working in their biology. It's a health issue. A doctor would investigate that. If you went to a doctor and said you're having difficulty getting pregnant, he's not going to investigate it, is he?
But I think you're flying in the face of science, frankly. The reality is that in the modern world, first of all, some people sadly, are born intersex. It is not clear what sex
hang on, because I've got to say, ladies and gentlemen, when I get to this point, when I'm told that I believe in biological reality and I'm flying in the face of science, I've got to have a drink, can't I? Cheers. Dewberry Tavern is open.
Hooray.
Cheers to you, and cheers to you. Cheers. Continue, please, and cheers to you at home.
So, in those circumstances, an operation can be undertaken that does change a man into a woman.
This is you're talking about a very niche segment of people who are born intersex. I mean, this is not what the majority of people here are talking about. This is about men, predominantly, who, for whatever reason, seem to think that they are a woman. You say this is a minority issue. It's not impacting many voters. I agree with you that a lot of people kind of say, who cares about this issue? But there are a great number of women,
it seems to get a lot of column inches about...
Yes, but that's because it's so important to us. As women, it's so important that biological realities are understood, and it really will shape the way a lot of people vote. Mm-hmm. It really will.
No, I mean, my view is, I suppose, boringly traditional, really, yes. I mean, you've got XS chromosomes and XY chromosomes. You've got a cervix or you haven't. I mean, that is the basic biological, definition. But I will give Jeff a little bit of benefit here. I mean, if somebody has gone through the whole procedure at great length, I think they mean it. I think they mean it. But the whole concept of gender reassignment certificates overnight, absolute nonsense. But Labour seem very confused by all this. And I think, as I've said, this is a flavour of things to come.
I am pretty confident you can't get a certificate overnight. Indeed, I checked.
Only
4,900 certificates have ever been issued.
Well, look, it was only the other day, it feels, that David Lammy was trying to tell people you could essentially, he could create these cervixes. I mean, honestly, it's time for us to go to the pub, ladies and gents.